Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So, taking another fun and exciting episode for you guys this evening because over the holiday weekend, a little bit into last week, Taki Udon updated some new details on the clone MiSTer FPGA boards, including the handheld design, which seems to be what everyone, including myself, really want to know about and get a hold of once it is ready. So we're going to go over all the new details of the MiSTer FPGA handheld, all the different design variants, as well as some changes to the actual DE10 clone board on the power side of things that I think will make a lot of people happy. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But everything has come a long way since Taki Udon first introduced the $99 MiSTer FPGA clone board, which he showed off months ago, and it has now even come down in price. And that seems to be pretty much done with the design revisions. But what Taki's talking about here is the handheld variant for MiSTer FPGA, because for the longest time, myself and everyone else has wanted to be able to take their MiSTer portably with them and be able to just hold it in your hand and play like we do on Analog Pocket. So it seems like right now he's going through different design revisions of the handheld, a plan A and a plan B, and kind of going back and forth between two. He's posted some very up-close photos, so we don't really get a full sense of the overall form factor, but he's showing both white and black variants with the analog thumbsticks on there. So we're getting a good sense of how this could be laid up, because those buttons, the A and B, there seem to be laid up in a diamond pattern, indicating potentially a 4-button face system versus 6. And a user on Twitter asked if these are going to be full-size analog sticks versus the things you'd see on something like a Joy-Con, and it seems like they're going to be the standard Xbox or PlayStation 5 style of analog. And that's awesome because we definitely want a full-size analog stick on something like this for PlayStation 1, Sega Saturn, and Nintendo 64. Now speaking of 6-face buttons, the Anbernic Arc-D and Arc-S really nailed the overall layout, having the 6-face buttons on the front. It's so useful for Capcom CPS2 games, Sega Genesis, things such as that, but definitely on the arcade side, having those 6-face buttons up on front was something that the handheld did exceptionally well, even if emulation on Saturn, because it does look like a Saturn, was hit or miss, and Taki has kind of alluded to a potential of this. He's not sure whether or not there could be an optional 6-button layout for Mega Drive, but he says to be determined it would need another front shell, so maybe it's a situation where the button pads could be on the PCB, and if you change the front shell out, there could be a couple inserts to give you a 6-face button configuration. I would absolutely love to see it, as I think many other people would, because Anbernic nailed that design overall for 6 buttons here. And it seems like Taki and the team behind this have definitely been going through different iterations of the overall design, which I think is a good thing, because the ergonomics on a handheld make or break a console. You could ship a MiSTer FPGA handheld all day long, but if the layout of the buttons, if the analog sticks, if the overall grips and feel in the hand are not good, no one's really going to love it. So it's good to see that they are dedicating all this time on iterating different designs, going through the clay phase of the overall structure, doing all of the things correctly to get a handheld that you're going to actually want to hold in your hand for prolonged periods of time, because trust me, if it's not comfortable, you're not going to have fun. And there's definitely a lot of different aesthetic options on the table as well, showing different colorways. Looks like Virtual Boy as well as the North American version of Super Nintendo. A lot of different options here that they are playing around with. So it remains to be seen what the final actual shape of the MiSTer FPGA handheld from Taki is going to look like, but hopefully we're going to know more soon. But there's a lot of fun information here, a lot of different hints about what it could look like, and we've got some more technical details to go over, including a dock situation, so that this isn't going to just be a MiSTer FPGA handheld, but something that you can plug into your television when you get home and transition to more console-based gaming, just like we do on Analog Pocket, which is going to be hugely important. And you'll see here that's exactly the question on the board. They talked about whether or not it's going to require a dock, and Taki says there's an HDMI port on the top and pins on the bottom for video or input-output expansion with a dock. So this seems to be something that's going to look potentially like an Analog Pocket, not in the form factor, but in the function of use. You pick up your Analog Pocket, you play it on the go as a portable, it excels at that sort of situation, and then when you get home you can just pop the Pocket into the dock, grab a controller, and start playing. So it seems like the MiSTer FPGA Portable is going to be using this design ethos and philosophy, a handheld with a dock so you can play when you get home, which is an absolutely awesome thing to do. There's no news really on the price of a potential dock or whether or not that comes in the box with a $150 targeted MiSTer FPGA handheld, but even if Taki had to sell them separately for $30–40, I don't think anyone would begrudge him because the price points are so attractive. And on the battery life front, it looks like they're targeting 4 hours with cores such as Saturn, Nintendo 64, and PlayStation 1, and honestly, even if they didn't hit that and went to 3 hours, I think we'd all be perfectly fine with that situation. Now moving on to the clone DE10 Nano board, it has received a little bit more of an update on the power delivery situation, 12 volt versus 5 volt, because last time we talked about this, there was a situation in which the target input voltage was defaulting to 12 volts, where USB hubs and I/O boards from the previous past on MiSTer FPGA designs were more of a 5 volt based system. You'll see here he's showing all this power going in, red and black being ground and 5 volt, and everything seems to be working totally fine. And he talked about the fact that the new USB hub board had arrived and how that can actually transmit power from the DE10 Nano into the hub. So it seems like the whole power situation on this is getting a little bit more resolved and rectified, because there was that outside chance that somebody might plug things in incorrectly, and the differences in voltage over the Terasic made DE10 Nano versus the clone could have set up some sort of hurdle or roadblock in the future for those power delivery needs. But honestly, it seems like that's been 100% rectified, and that is a good thing. And someone asked about the purpose of the micro USB port, and that's for compatibility with the DE10, because in all of our setup guides we've kind of talked about how you power your MiSTer and how everything connects. So it's good to see that a lot of the power requirements are getting more in line with what all of the existing boards on the market would expect, because not everyone is going to just be jumping into MiSTer for the first time on the clone. They might be making a second build with boards they have hanging around, so trying to get this a little bit more streamlined and in function with what already exists on the market is definitely a smart decision. I definitely welcome that as well. And he's shown taking off some of the ports and other information on the power. It gets a little bit nerdy when it comes to power delivery, and I'm sure most of you aren't hyper interested in the details. You just want to know that there's going to be a good ease of use here, and it seems like that's exactly what is going to be happening. And it's been so much fun to follow along with all of these details. This is how you do a project right. Taki Udon announced a clone MiSTer, then very shortly afterwards he showed games running on that clone MiSTer board. He's been going over so many different design iterations both on the handheld and the clone side of things, making sure that this hardware is ready for prime time. So there's no question that this exists. We have seen it running. We're just kind of waiting to find out when everything is going to ship and when orders are going to go out. But honestly, it feels like we're getting close to the home stretch here, at least on the clone boards, as potentially being able to order them for shipping later this year. I'm sure most of you are mostly interested in the handheld design, as am I, but we're also waiting for more details on the different consoleized version of the MiSTer clone setup in its entirety. But like I said, for me the handheld is just one of those things I absolutely want to experience. I love my analog pocket. It does a great job for the cores it runs, but it does not and cannot run every single MiSTer FPGA core. I want to play Sega Saturn on the go. I want to play Nintendo 64 on the go in FPGA on MiSTer in a handheld, and that seems to be coming very shortly. But that's the current situation with Taki Udon and his clone MiSTer FPGA boards. Hopefully we have some more to report in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully we can order these and start testing them soon, because the first time one of the products is ready to ship, I will pick it up, I'll do a full test, and I'll give you my final verdict on whether or not it's worth it. My assumptions are going to be it should be an easy thing to recommend. If you have any questions or comments, I'll leave them down below and tell me, are you more interested in the clone board or the handheld? Because I would be curious. But short of that, we're done, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.